Manx Radio's Update with Dave Moore.
Time is 5 o'clock. You're listening to Manx Radio. I am Dave Moore, and this is Update. Welcome to the programme. Half an hour of the latest news in the Isle of Man, plus Manx sport, business and travel updates, along with the newsmakers in person. Coming up, LMHK's taken drastic action in a bid to resolve the number of potholes that need fixing on the roads in the constituency they represent. There's a new location for COVID-19 autumn boosters as Manx Care abandons the vaccine hub at Chester Street. And good news for campers at the Glenwillan site in Kirkmichael. That's all coming up in the next 30 minutes. But first of all, the Update News headlines with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai. Demands from unions on the island over pay for public sector workers are neither reasonable or acceptable, according to the chair of the Public Services Commission. Members of Prospect and Unite both rejected a recent offer from the government body in a ballot. Talks have been ongoing for months in a dispute over pay. Almost 5,500 people are now waiting to go on an NHS dentist list on the Isle of Man. The latest figures from Manx Care show 5,458 patients were waiting to be allocated to a dentist at the end of July. COVID-19 autumn boosters will be delivered at the private patients unit in Nobles Hospital later this year. Manx Care moved its vaccine hub from Chester Street ahead of this year's spring booster programme following issues with the building. And in sport, Isle of Man boxer Jade Burden's second professional fight this weekend has been called off. The Grenade had been due to face a late change of opponent in Rebecca Ferguson at Winter Gardens in Blackpool, but it's understood necessary paperwork for the bout to take place has not been submitted in time. In the international news, a member of Royal Navy personnel has died after a helicopter ditched in the Channel during a night flying exercise. It happened off the coast of Dorset last night. The Ministry of Defence says 2 other people on board were taken to hospital. Jeremy Kyle has defended his presenting style at an inquest into the death of a man who'd been a guest on his chat show. The host told the hearing he was direct but empathetic. Steve Diamond from Portsmouth is thought to have taken his own life a week after taking part in a recording. And the competition watchdogs launched an investigation into Ticketmaster over the sale of Oasis tickets. It's looking into whether the sale breached consumer law and will cover the site's use of so-called dynamic pricing. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news in full at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Lewis. Moving on to the weather now. Dry with bright or sunny intervals and variable amounts of cloud. Fresh to strong northeast winds continuing to increase and becoming very gusty this evening. And at first tonight, especially the east and south of the island, maximum temperature 19 Celsius today. Fine and sunny tomorrow. Becoming very warm by the afternoon with a maximum of 23 degrees Celsius expected. Still windy to start with a fresh northeasterly, but this slowly decreasing as the day goes on. And looking ahead to Saturday, dry with sunny spells, light to moderate east or northeast wind, and still rather warm with highest temperatures 21 Celsius.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
Your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
Firestone Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 49667.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
A Russian MHK is threatening to plant Christmas trees with LED lights in potholes in Port St Mary if the Department of Infrastructure doesn't fix the roads through the village. Michelle Haywood spent this morning filling the road surface on High Street with cyclamen which is a popular house plant with large showy winter flowers. She says it's because she's sick of them not getting on with the detailed design for the rebuild of the High Street and the top end of Athol Street, which she says is in such poor condition.
So yeah, I planted daffodils in an effort of guerrilla gardening to highlight the issue and to show it, and that was really good. The DOI came along and they patched the road up and things like that. And this time I promised if there was nothing going to happen within a few months, I would plant cyclamen. I think I offered geraniums, but we've gone a bit too far in the summer for geraniums, so I planted cyclamen today to show to the department that I'm sick of them not fixing the roads.
Now, the first time that you planted the daffodils, I know within a few days we did have some DOI employees come out and do some work and patch up some potholes. But it seems as though you're back in square one.
Yeah, the patches that were done on the potholes are only a temporary fix. The road substructure is what really needs fixing, and there are plans for a big capital scheme that will come in here and repair this road properly. We know from talking to residents, the houses shake because the road structure is so poor. So what we really need to do is just get on with that job, and I really can't understand what's taking so long. This whole thing has been 7 or 8 years now in the making, and we're not seeing any movement from them.
Have you sensed any urgency from the DOI in terms of dealing with this?
They came down very quickly last time. I planted daffodils to put patches on the holes, but other than that we don't seem to be getting any movement at all. Myself and the Speaker, Mr Watterson, are due to meet with the DOI to discuss where projects are at shortly, but I'm going to carry on highlighting this until something actually gets done about it. I'm hoping not to be planting Christmas trees in here, but if I have to, I'm thinking Christmas trees with little LED lights will go down a tree.
You filled up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, close to 10 potholes just on the High Street alone.
Yeah, this road really is in such poor condition. Every time the patches are done, they're not sealed around the edges. They last maybe a year, maybe slightly less than that in some cases, and then that road surface scuffs off again, and it's just not acceptable to keep leaving the residents with such poor condition in the road.
Russian MHK Michelle Hayward talking there to Chanel Sakou. COVID-19 autumn boosters will be delivered at the private patients unit in Noseballs Hospital later this year. Manx Care moved its vaccine hub from Chester Street ahead of this year's spring booster programme following issues with the building. Sean Cowper has this report.
The spring vaccines were delivered at the Summerhill View Care Home ahead of it opening to residents, but the next round of boosters will be given at the private patients unit alongside pop-up clinics in the north, west and south. It's expected the programme will get underway in mid-October. Those invited will also have the opportunity to have a seasonal flu vaccine at the same time, while GP practices and some pharmacies will also be providing flu jabs. More than 6,600 patients received a spring booster, which was offered to those aged 75 and over, residents in care homes and those who are immunosuppressed. Manx Care says a permanent location for a vaccination hub is yet to be determined. It's also preparing to deliver a newly commissioned RSV vaccine this month for those aged 75 to 79 and pregnant women. The virus can cause bronchiolitis and lead to a significant increase in admissions on the children's ward, particularly during autumn. More details on the RSV vaccine are due to be published in the coming weeks.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
A provision has been made to allow campers at Glenwillan to use the nearby community hall in an emergency situation. It was among a number of issues discussed by Michael Commissioners at its monthly board meeting last night. Local Democracy reporter Emma Draper was there.
Michael Commissioners discussed the septic tank and upgrades to the Glenmore public toilets. The clerk said it hadn't been checked for a number of years and she had contacted a couple of companies to sort the issue. Commissioner Carol Lily-White suggested asking Manx Utilities to inspect it and see what needs to be done and if there were any risks of leaking. It was agreed by the board to go to the MU and also Environmental Health for advice. Notice boards are going up around the village for residents to be able to see Commissioners' notices and community events. These are to help people who are not online or don't have access to social media. The Commissioners confirmed they have the boards and the contractor will be installing them in different places soon. Also on the agenda was a provision to use the village hall as an emergency location if there is bad weather during TT and Manx Grand Prix weeks. Commissioner Diane Kelly said Glenwillan Campsite had asked the board if the hall could be listed on their insurance for visitors to be evacuated to if a problem arose. She said they approached the board because its licence is up for renewal. A number of measures were listed by the board, including making sure its office is locked, anything valuable is removed, and a fire safety document is made available to those using it. The commissioners agreed to the request. An update was provided on plans for new play and exercise equipment for the village. Commissioner Avril Muller says these should be installed by mid-September and work is underway for their installation. Michael Commissioners will next meet on Wednesday the 9th of October.
Local democracy reporter Emma Draper. You're tuned to Manx Radio. This is Update, and this weekend marks the start of a new season for the Isle of Man's highest-ranked rugby side, and they're up against opposition from the UK. Douglas travelled to Firwood Waterloo in their opening game of the latest Regional 2 North West campaign on Saturday afternoon. The Manx side's head coach, Phil Kringle, is feeling optimistic.
Yeah, it's good. The last few weeks we've sort of gone away from just flogging everyone as hard as possible and trying to get everyone as fit as possible. So we started bringing in a lot more detail into the rugby sessions. So we've got our plays and line-outs and backs moves all set out now, ready to go for Saturday. Ideally, we could have done with a few more games in preparation, but either way, to be honest with you, that just means the boys are more chomping at the bit to try and get their first hit out. So, no, I'm dead excited. I'm hoping that we'll have a good season and hopefully we can make a good start to the campaign on Saturday with a good performance. Waterloo are one of the better sides in the league. Their league position over the last few years been pretty consistent, up in the sort of top 3 or 4. So we're expecting a good solid challenge. They'll play sort of a very expansive brand of rugby, whereas I think we'll be backing ourselves up front really more than anything. So yeah, it should be interesting battle. Both teams are obviously first game of the season, so it's just important we get out there and put on as good a performance as possible. So,
what's the kind of hope in the early stages of this season? Where would you like to see yourself in the first couple of months?
Certainly, basically, we think we want to crack the back of it and try and get some points on the board early doors. I think once we believed in ourselves and we had the confidence to win games, which took us, I think we didn't win until our 6th game last season, then we showed what we could do. And we went on to win 5 on the bounce and rack up quite a fair few points. So we're looking to do that a lot earlier on. So then we're sort of into our flow of things. So we're really targeting these early games to try and get a couple of wins, some points on the board, and then we're into a normal campaign then. So it's breaking the back of it, and we're expecting hopefully to be up round the mid-table mark come Christmas, and then we can see what we can do.
Phil Kringle talking there to Rob Pritchard, and Rob will be here later in the programme with the latest sports news. On to business now, and Guernsey's adult minimum wage will rise to £12 next month after politicians voted for the increase. The current adult minimum wage in the Channel Island is £10.65 and £9.65 for 16 and 17-year-olds, which will rise to £10.80. Jersey's minimum wage is set to increase to £13 from April next year, while here in the Isle of Man, the adult minimum wage is currently £11.45. On to the markets, and Wall Street trading got off to a mixed start as market participants thumbed over a number of data points in an effort to gain more insight into the current state of the US economy. Oil firmed, edging up from multi-month lows due to a possible delay to output increases by OPEC, plus producers and a decline in the US inventories, though gains were capped by persistent demand concerns. Gold prices jumped 1% to near one-week highs on the back of a weaker US dollar and lower yields after signs of labour market losing steam led investors to expect a supersized rate cut from the Federal Reserve this month. Onto the markets, the FTSE 100 is at 8,251. That's down 0.21%. And the DAX is at 18,619, up 0.16%. The Dow Jones 47,000, down 0.67%. The Nasdaq 17,131, that's up 0.27%. The exchange rates, the pound against the dollar is 1.315 and against the euro 1.187. And the commodities, gold is at $2,507, that's up 0.49%. Brent is at $73.20, that's up 0.66%.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsay Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsay Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Demands from unions on the island over pay for public sector workers are neither reasonable or acceptable, according to the chair of the Public Services Commission. Members of Prospect and Unite both rejected a recent offer from the government body in a ballot. Talks have been ongoing for months in a dispute over pay, but Kate Lord-Brennan says claims the island needs to match UK pay rises don't take into account increases already awarded.
To apply a pay award, the Public Services Commission, needs to agree with that with the union. So we can't just apply an agreed pay award, without coming to an agreed position. So we're still in talks, to answer your question. But the point I'd really like to make, that in the face of demands from the unions, which if met would actually mean that a pay award of 20%, approaching 20% within 3 years, would be applied if those union demands were met. What needs to be understood is that in the past 2 years, a pay award of 6% has been applied in each year. And so whilst we recognise that having good remuneration and recognition for valuing staff is important, and everybody of course would want to have reasonable pay awards, what's absolutely in the Commission's mind is that we need to have some reasonableness in this. There needs to be affordability taken account of. So we will, the Commission met yesterday, and we will talk more and consider what any next stage offer to the unions will be. We've talked throughout the year. We rely on their claims coming in and coming to an agreed position so that we can apply a pay award. What's interesting as well is that every percentage pay award costs the taxpayer in excess of 1.5 million, and it's not just the monthly pay, but it's the impact, of course, on the public sector pension contributions. So with the good pay awards already been given, I think that the Commission is taking a reasonable approach. We can't have year-on-year high pay awards. We need to come to a reasonable position, and I'm hopeful that we will, but there's nothing unusual that's going on at this time of year that hasn't gone on in other times of the year.
The unions disagree somewhat. They've described the latest pay offer as unacceptable and disgraceful. This is Prospect and Unite. What are you going to do to change that perception?
Well, I think that a bit of context is always needed, isn't it, really? So I think that the arguments made by the union saying, well, of course, we want a pay award that's matching the UK. Of course we want that. Well, actually, here on the Isle of Man, the pay awards that the Public Services Commission employees, which are mainly the civil service, the pay awards they've had in the past 2 years, which have a cumulative effect, have been in excess, actually, of what the UK have got already. So you need to look at it in the broader context relevant to the Isle of Man. I don't think that the offers made should be described as that. We will keep talking. We do talk directly to them and listen. But I don't think anybody would think that a pay award approaching 20% within a 3-year period would be something that would be reasonable or acceptable. And I don't see, when I talk to my constituents or businesses, that they're in a position to either offer their employees or get themselves pay awards.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Let's start at the airport. Some delays, I'm afraid. The Loganair flight to London City, which was due to leave at 5:30, is now going at 6:10. And the EasyJet service to Manchester, also scheduled for 5:30, is now going at 7:25. The Liverpool Loganair at 6 o'clock is on time. London Gatwick EasyJet was due to go at 8. It's now going at 10:10 tonight. So that will also mean there are delays on the arrivals into the island as well. The Loganair Birmingham, which was due to arrive in at 4:25, should be getting in just about now. The EasyJet Manchester, which was due at 5, is due in at 6:05. The Loganair, though, from Manchester, which was due in at 5:25, is on time. And the Gatwick, as we heard, the departure is delayed, so too the arrival was due in at 7:30, now expected to land at 9:20. However, Loganair's Liverpool service, due in at 7:55, is showing as on time. And also the London City flight, which is due in at 9:10 from Loganair, is also on time. On to the ferries. Of course, it's windy. We have the departure from Douglas tonight, expected at 7:45. And the latest from the steam packet is due to the forecast adverse weather. The sailing is subject to possible disruption or cancellation. And to give this sailing every opportunity to take place, a final decision will be made in around 10 minutes' time. If we find out what that is, if they make it before then, we'll let you know. But check on their website to see whether that sailing will go tonight at 7:45. And of course, if there is a knock-on effect or it doesn't go, then that will of course hinder the return, which is due at 2:15.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
A Port St Mary commissioner says it's hardly surprising tourists are complaining about not having a bus to take them to Cregneash and the Sound, despite brochures about the Isle of Man and its sites saying otherwise. David Scott made the comment after it was revealed Russian Heritage Centre recorded 97 complaints from people who wanted to visit the key sites, but were left disappointed, after finding out there wasn't a way through public transport. Mr Scott was attending a public meeting to discuss the 28 route in Port St Mary last night.
You've got all the villages between here and the Sound, and Cregneash isn't just a village, it's a tourist destination. There is no other way of getting there if you don't have your own transport. We have an island which is saying it wants to reduce dependency on cars, and the only way you can get there is to drive. It doesn't make sense. I'd like to see Bus Bannon restore the service. I accept that there is a financial problem there, but maybe they can get someone to help subsidise it. They say that there is none, but I don't see any evidence that they've tried for that.
Hearing the numbers, the figures, the 90 some odd complaints that were recorded at the Russian Heritage Centre, does it show that they could be doing a disservice to the people on the Isle of Man by taking away this service?
Well, the tourist brochures all talk about being able to get a train from Douglas to Port Erin and then a bus to the Sound and Cregneash. And you can't do that, so it's hardly surprising that people are going to be complaining if that's what they thought they could do when they came over here. And if the tourist industry thinks that that's attractive, then the issue is, why doesn't the bus service run it?
Moving on, you're listening to Update on Manx Radio. A local marine biologist is combining two passions of theirs, the wonders of the island's nature reserves and creative writing, to launch a new series of 10 workshops, each with a focus on one of the island's marine nature reserves. Dr. Fiona Gell is a freelance marine conservationist and writer.
So I've always loved writing, and then just a few years ago I had the opportunity to actually sit down and write about the marine environment of the Isle of Man. So I did get to combine my two passions, and so I wrote my book Spring Tides, and I really enjoyed that so much in terms of being able to take the experiences I've been really lucky to have, like diving down into the seabed of the Isle of Man and spending a lot of time on the shore, and also going out on boats. And so that gave me the opportunity to write, which I really enjoy doing, and also to concentrate and celebrate the amazing marine life we have around the Isle of Man. And I enjoyed so much, rather than writing in a scientific way, which I was used to, actually having the opportunity to write creatively about the sea. And that's one of the things that has inspired the workshops, because it's a great thing to be able to focus on, to do creative writing, because there's just so much there in terms of the beauty of it, the interest of it, the kind of quirkiness of it, and also, the kind of bigger issues around conservation and climate change. So it brings in so many things that I'm really passionate about into something which I hope will interest a lot of people in different ways.
I think maybe we take it for granted a little bit, the Isle of Man. We've got these gorgeous, not just you'd think the glens and the plantations and all the inland stuff, but we are surrounded by the sea, obviously. We're a little island. So you're hoping that people who come along to this, obviously there's that educational aspect, but also they can leave these workshops and then be inspired by the sea going forward, and maybe we might see some more budding writers writing about this gorgeous place we live in.
Yeah, that's what I really hope. I hope that through the workshops we're going to be looking at different types of writing, fiction and non-fiction, poetry. There's something hopefully there for everyone who's got an interest in some aspect of creative writing, and it would be brilliant to see more writing about the sea and about our relationship to it. Everyone on the island sees the sea regularly and has got a different link to it, and whether it's from actually going out fishing or from going out diving or paddleboarding or a kind of more family connection. So, it's really great to give people the tools to sort of celebrate that. And, I really hope it does inspire people to write.
And so where are some of the locations that you're going to be holding them then?
The idea is that the venues are as close as possible to the Marine Nature Reserve that we're focusing on. So the first one is being held in Peel. So that's the West Coast Marine Nature Reserve, which is a really big area.
Now, as promised, here's Rob Pritchard with the sport. Fast am I?
Fast am I. Well, we'll start with football, and the Isle of Man women's national football team look all but certain to miss out on a place at the 2025 Ireland Games in Orkney. During last night's draws to select who would compete in the men's and women's tournaments, the Manx female squad weren't drawn for one of the 12 guaranteed spots, instead being the last ball to be picked out as the third reserve. Meanwhile, the Isle of Man men's team did make the main draw of their event in the competition taking place next year. The group stage draw for next year's games is currently due to take place on Monday the 30th of September. In boxing, Isle of Man boxer Jay Burden's second professional fight this weekend has been called off. The Grenade had been due to return to the ring at Winter Gardens in Blackpool on Saturday night against a last-minute change of opponent in experienced competitor Rebecca Ferguson. Ferguson had been a last-gasp replacement for Burden's original opponent Kerry Orton, who recently withdrew due to personal reasons. However, it's since been confirmed whilst Ferguson had agreed to the contest, necessary paperwork for the bout to take place had not been completed before the deadline. And finally, in cycling, Manxman Max Walker has enjoyed another positive day with the Great Britain squad today at the 2024 Tour of Britain. On today's third stage from Sheffield to Barnsley, Walker finished 28th, only 42 seconds behind winner Stephen Williams of Israel Premier Tech, who's now claimed back-to-back stage victories on the Tour. Ireland resident Ben Swift for Ineos Grenadiers also finished towards the right end of the pack, 11 seconds ahead of Walker in 26th place.